Hi, I'm Dayna Zolle, Appellate Counsel at the Constitutional Accountability Center in Washington, D.C. Today, we're here to talk about a very exciting victory at the Supreme Court. Today, the court decided the DACA cases, which are also called the Department of Homeland Security versus Regents of the University of California and other consolidated cases. The Supreme Court held that the Trump administration's attempt to rescind the DACA policy was unlawful. DACA is the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals policy that the Obama administration started in 2012. And under that policy, young people who are brought to the United States as children, who often know no other country as their home, can apply for temporary grants of deferred action, or basically temporary times when immigration removal laws cannot be enforced against them. And that's also called forbearance. And under DACA, these DACA recipients can also apply for other benefits like work authorization. This program has been hugely successful. Nearly 700,000 people have received benefits under this policy. And the policy also obviously benefits not only the direct recipients of DACA, but their families, their communities, their employees and employers, our military. DACA recipients are COVID-19 responders. They're all over our community. So this has been just a hugely popular policy. But despite that, in 2017, the Trump administration decided to attempt to end the policy. And it announced that it was doing that on the ground that, according to the Trump administration, DACA was unlawful. And that's just not true. So CAC actually filed an amicus brief in this case in the Supreme Court on behalf of 172 members of Congress, both former members and current members. And we argued in that brief that the Trump administration's decision to end the DACA policy was unlawful, that it violated a law called the Administrative Procedure Act. Under that law, an agency needs to give reasons and be transparent about why it's taking certain actions. And the Trump administration here argued that it was ending DACA because it claimed that DACA was unlawful, that it exceeded the the executive branch's authority. We argued in our amicus brief in the Supreme Court on behalf of members of Congress that was just not true, that DACA was actually a lawful exercise of executive discretion, and therefore the decision to end DACA and rescind that policy was itself unlawful. In other words, the Trump administration's reasons for ending DACA were just not good enough. Today, the Supreme Court agreed. Chief Justice Roberts wrote the decision, and it was a 5-4 victory. And the court held that the Trump administration's decision to rescind the DACA policy violated the Administrative Procedure Act, that it was arbitrary and capricious. Those are the terms under the act. And really the question in this case, there were a few issues involved, but the main question that I want to focus on here was whether the decision to end DACA was procedurally proper, whether the administration gave sufficient reasons for its actions and was upfront about why it was taking certain actions. The court determined that there were significant problems with the way the Trump administration reached its decision. Essentially, the Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security failed to consider important things when she recommended that the policy be ended. So one of the things that she failed to consider was the possibility of continuing to grant temporary relief from immigration removal laws, the possibility of retaining what's called forbearance. So she determined that some of the benefits that DACA recipients receive are, in her view, unlawful, and therefore the recommendation was to scrap the DACA policy altogether. And the court here said, perhaps those decisions could have been separated. Perhaps if certain benefits are unlawful, that was not necessarily a reason to also get rid of the possibility of forbearance, of granting DACA recipients the ability to stay in the country for temporary periods of time. And the other sort of major consideration that she failed to take into account was the huge reliance interest on DACA. As I said, nearly 700,000 people have benefited directly from this policy, and our country as a whole just relies hugely on this program. And the Secretary of Homeland Security, who was part of making this decision to end DACA, just did not take that into account. And she was not sufficiently upfront about the reasons that she was taking this agency action. And the Supreme Court said that failure to consider these factors was arbitrary and capricious in violation of the Administrative Procedure Act. So this was a tremendous victory. Essentially, the court said that the Trump administration needs to give reasons when it takes certain agency actions. It needs to be transparent about why it's doing what it's doing. And it did not do that here. And that's something that the Trump administration has repeatedly struggled with. You all may remember the census case from a couple of years back, where the Trump administration wanted to add a question about citizenship to the 2020 census. And the Supreme Court in that case, similar to this case, questioned the Trump administration's reason for adding that question to the census. Basically, the Supreme Court said that the Trump administration needed to be upfront about why it was doing what it was doing. And the same holds true today. Chief Justice Roberts continued to demand more from the Trump administration and ensure that the administration follows the laws that any executive branch administration needs to follow. The same laws that have applied for decades. So this was a really exciting victory, and I hope you're all celebrating. For more information on the background of these cases and for the opportunity to read the amicus brief that CAC filed on behalf of members of Congress, please visit our website at www.theusconstitution.org. And please also share this video with your networks and stay tuned to our social media pages for more alerts on news that impacts our nation and the Constitution. Thank you so much for joining us.